Hey friends, I hope you're well. So we've been talking about the Yamas and the Niyamas, and this week in class we covered Bramacharya, which can be one of the trickier Yamas actually to discuss at this point in our history, because there's a few trigger points that kind of get a couple people excited. But let's start by just breaking down the word Bramacharya. So Brahma can be translated as the divine or a concept of God. And charya can kind of be translated as to move with or to embody. So Bramacharya, the word itself, literal translation could be something like to embody the divine or to move with God. Often it's said to walk with God, right? And frankly, a lot of the yogis and swamis throughout the years who have written commentary on the Yoga Sutras, they just define the word as celibacy or abstinence or continence. So right there, for a lot of us, we've got two pretty triggering concepts. We've got this idea of walking with God and no sex, right? And a lot of us can just be like, maybe that one's not for me, and we brush over it and move on to the next thing. But it's a really important and useful yama to have in our lives, so it's worth unpacking a little bit. If we look at the entire sutra, it says something like, for one who's established in Bramacharya, vigor is gained. Energy is gained. And there's a very ancient belief that has to do with using sexual energy, redirecting that sexual energy for other purposes, such as spiritual enlightenment, for example. So for a moment, let's strip away the idea of God and let's strip the idea of no sex out of this equation. Because again, this could be triggering for a lot of us. If you were to go home from a yoga class and suddenly say to your spouse or whatever, sorry honey, I can't have sex with you anymore, my yoga teacher told me it's bad. That's going to cause some problems in your life, right? And I read an interesting blog by a woman named Carly Grant, and she, I think, accurately says that, for the average Western yoga student who lives in, a sex-obsessed, God-wary, materialistic, consumerist society, like this is one of the most difficult yamas to kind of understand and to embody. But if we think about this idea of, for one who's established in Bramacharya, vigor is gained, it's easier for us to understand that if we think about in terms of something we can relate to on a daily basis. So food, for example. We've probably all been in a situation where we've eaten too many pieces of pizza, or we've been eating ice cream out of the tub and all of a sudden our spoon is scraping the bottom of the ice cream tub, right? And how do we feel after that? Do we feel like we've gained vigor and energy? No. We feel depleted, usually. We feel maybe bloated. We feel tired. We feel drained, which is the opposite of what food is supposed to do. It's supposed to give us energy, give us vigor. But by overindulgence in that, by not finding that middle way, we've done the opposite of what it's supposed to do for us. And this can be applied to all kinds of things in our life. Too many cups of coffee, right? We're really digging a book, enjoying a nice cup of coffee, so we have another one and then another one to try to keep that vibe going. And suddenly, the next thing we know, we've got, our heart's beating faster, we're a little anxious, we're no longer feeling good, right? Alcohol is a really big one in our society, a really easy one to overdo. I've done it, we've all probably been there, right? Where we're really having fun with our friends, we're digging the vibe, we're drinking some wine or beer, whatever, we're feeling good. And then rather than stopping to checking in to see if we should continue down that path, or if we should stop and have a glass of water, we just keep overindulging in these sensory pleasures. And usually what happens is we end up feeling shitty, right? We end up feeling tired or dizzy or nauseous, or we do or say stupid things. Either way, we're probably not feeling good about it the next morning, right? So Bramacharya is really about finding just the right amount. This idea of like the Goldilocks and the Three Bears scenario. Finding in whatever input we have in our life, finding just enough so that it's giving us energy and not draining us. And certainly this can be applied to sex. We can be careful about who we're going to share that energy with. That's great. There's nothing wrong with that. This can be applied to work. It can be applied to any input that comes into our lives. And it can also be applied in the yoga studio and for our physical kind of asana practice. Because these practices, they're really designed to leave people feeling better than when they came in, right? We're moving the body around, we're moving physically, we're moving our energy around in a way that's supposed to kind of clear us up, get rid of some of those sticky parts, right? That's not to say that we don't work hard and that we don't sometimes sweat and build heat, but that's intended to help loosen us up, help make us feel better, right? Now, we control our own intensity dials. What I hate to see is for someone to walk in happy and healthy to a yoga studio and leave limping, right? That defeats the purpose of coming. Now, it's a physical practice and injury can happen, but again, we get to control our own intensity dials. So I'd invite you to apply this concept of Bramacharya to the yoga mat as well. So I hope this kind of clears up and demystifies this sticky Yama and kind of puts it into more of a context that we can understand in this society, because it is a very useful tool to have in our lives. Next week, we're going to talk about the fifth and the final Yama, which is a parigraha, and that can kind of be translated as non-clinging, non-attachment, non-possessiveness. I hope to see you then.